What's good, guys? It's ILLson 4K, and today on Terror Talk, where we talk about terror here on ILLtv, because where if it's pop culture, it pops up here, we're talking about a remake of an old classic movie from 1989 in the horror spectrum that absolutely pretty much matched and a little bit surpassed the original, and we don't get to say that very often in horror, and I'm talking about the Pet Semetary 2019 remake from the original 1989 remake, both based on the book by Stephen King. Amazingly well done retelling, remake, whatever you want to call it. It's amazing, to be quite honest with you. The way they handled this affair and took it from what it was in the late 1980s and made today's technology and artistry and cinematography really apply is what all horror movies should strive to be if they're going to try to be a remake of something original. Because everything that was illustrated in the first movie gets illustrated 10 times better in this film. And actually, there's a bunch of things that I can't tell you before we get into this, as I've never actually read the book, what's from the book and what's not from the book. But I can say that the retelling of this, if it has stuff drawn from the book, is welcome. And if it's not from the book, it's still very welcome because it's just so well done. So we're going to get into this right now. So make sure you stick around. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Remember, it's ILLson 4K with Terror Talk here on ILLtv. Alright, so this movie still begs the ultimate question. If there's a way for you to bring something back from the dead without knowing the ramifications of how it would come back, would you do it the first time? And if you did it and found out that it didn't work out the way you thought, and it actually made the thing that came back a little bit more evil and maniacal, would you think it was just a fluke and that you could fix it the next time around if something else passed away? Again, it's a really interesting question to ask because it's really specific and not something that could actually happen. Everyone's got their own answers, but this movie seems to have its own answer to it. Cut to the opening scene, it shows the Clarks, the family that once lived in the busy streets of Boston, now coming on down to Ludlow, Maine to try and relax in the open countryside areas and enjoy one another's company versus constantly rushing around as city life will have you doing. Moving forward from there, we see them arrive in the house and take everything in and how awesome and open the airspace is. The two kids love it, the husband and wife are in love, everybody's picking the rooms. It's real happy-go-lucky stuff. We all know what it's about if you've ever had to buy a house before. Moving onward from there, it shows the first day of the doctor in his new position as a physician at the local university, as a doctor who just helps the students who are injured, and it cuts open to him having a nosebleed, which he laughs about being a rough first day. Turns out to actually be a very rough day, as the individual known as Pascal, yes, the infamous Pascal, is brought into the medical room after being dragged by a car, and he is scraped up really badly. The doctors get him into the back room and hook him up to life support to try and bring him to life, and that's when the nurses notice you could actually see exposed brain bits, and this guy probably isn't going to make it. Unfortunately, Pascal does pass away, say that 3 times fast, and the doctor writes down that he's passed away, only for Pascal to jump back to life and tell the doctor not to cross the barrier, which the doctor has no idea about because, what the fuck? He thinks he's just stressed out and hallucinating things, so he just writes it off as if nothing happens because, of course he would. Cut to the wife and the daughter, Ellie, now in the backwoods of their own house, exploring their new area, and they notice that there's a bunch of children marching with masks on their face that look like papier-mâché, rabbits, dogs, cats, foxes, whatever you want to call it, and it actually shows that they have a deceased dog inside of a wheelbarrow. Ellie decides to break away from her mother and follow where these kids go, and finds the infamous Pet Semetary, where she then meets Judd, who tells her this is where people go to bury their pets, and it's actually on their property, making things even weirder, right? That's really crazy. Imagine what the property taxes are for having something that could raise the dead in your backyard. My God, thank God they moved out to Maine. So Judd introduces himself and meets the daughter, meets the mother, and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much how the movie starts out. And it's actually a very solid retelling of the simplistic part of the film, because from this point forward, it just gets really weird, really fast. Alright, so the one truly bad thing about where the family is relocated, literally right outside of their house, is the infamous highway that has a 2-lane road where Mack trucks go down it at blistering speeds. I'm talking it just breaks the silence as soon as it enters the scene. And as you can imagine, a lot of pets have unfortunately met their fate at this road because those Mack trucks are unrelenting and run over everything. Hence where the Pet Semetary comes from, the road itself. Rather unique little twist there, huh? Anyway, unfortunately, Ellie's cat, Church, yes, short for Winston Churchill, ends up being one of the animals that's run over at this road. It actually happens on Halloween Day, so Judd calls the husband over and says, listen, go out trick-or-treating with your family, we'll bury this cat later, don't worry about it. I know how much your daughter loves it, don't ruin the day for her. Smart man. So Judd and the husband come back later that evening to bury the cat, and Judd asks the husband, how much does your little girl love that cat? Because I'm just asking, wink wink, without actually saying that. The husband says, of course, she loved it to death. Why wouldn't she? It's her favorite animal. And he says, all right, come with me, and decides to take him to the area where the Wendigo burial ground actually happens. What's a Wendigo? We'll talk about that in a second. The Wendigo burial ground, where he buries the cat and says, put these stones on top of the grave, so on and so forth. They go back to the house, and the husband and the wife decide to tell Ellie that Church ran away instead of Church has died, because the wife doesn't want to tell her that the animals passed away. So they go and tell her, the husband and the wife, and the daughter says, what are you talking about? Church was in my window last night, and then points and says, Church is actually in the closet right now. The husband walks over to the closet and finds Church sitting there, who looks very disheveled and zombie-like, and hisses at him, which is what cats do anyway when you disturb them. And from there, he goes and asks Judd, where did we bury this cat last night? And Judge said, well, actually, it's a burial ground that has to do with the Wendigo, the infamous forest spirit that doesn't let things die, apparently. That's how it works. And that's why the natives that were there, the Indians, actually left that area a long time ago, as the ground is sour, as they might say, in the movie over and over again. After that, Judd realizes, what he did was wrong and apologizes and said, I thought your cat would come back more friendly, as the cat has not come back friendly at all, and is actually scratching and clawing everybody, including terrorizing the baby in the bassinet, to the point where it has these glowing white eyes every time it freaks out. It's definitely scarier than the first film, that's for sure. Now, what this leads to is, of course, the husband trying to figure out, what do I do with this maniacal cat that's going to really hurt someone? He takes the cat and drives it all the way out up the countryside and abandons it like a heartless bastard, but we understand the circumstances here. Don't abandon your pets. Make sure you drop them off at shelters or try to give them to friends, or just don't abandon your pets on that note. Anyway, as the scene goes on, it comes back to the fact that Ellie hasn't seen this cat in a while and is upset, and it's actually her birthday. So on her birthday, she decides to play hide and seek, and what does she see coming down the infamously dangerous road? Church. She runs up to Church and starts petting him and rejoicing at how happy she is, completely unaware that there is a Mack truck coming from behind, about to run her over. Now here's where things get different, because in the original, child that dies is actually the baby, Gage, the boy. This time around, the Mack truck derails and runs over Ellie and kills her, the girl. Interesting twist. Of course, this leads the husband to think about the infamous burial grounds where Judd tells him, don't bury her there, it's a bad idea, do not do that. Now, I'm not going to say anything else because it's pretty self-explanatory how this is going to go down, and I don't want to ruin any plot twists or anything else because I've pretty much told the basis of the plot without ruining anything. Again, make sure you watch this, especially if you've seen the original and want to see how cool it is with a bigger budget and greater mindscape at hand here, and the cinematography and everything. Again, definitely make sure you watch it. This plot is awesome, and the retelling is even more awesome than the original, if you want my opinion, but the original is still an untouchable classic in its own way. So I gotta say, my review of this movie is it's actually very well done. I was absolutely in love with it from the time I put it on until the time it ended, with a different style ending, and apparently there's an alternate ending which you should check out. I think it was really awesome. The retelling of everything, right down to the fact that it's the girl, Ellie, who passes away instead of Gage, is a really unique way to put a twist on this that was not what you expected. The storytelling and the dialogue between the individuals had at hand here is fantastic for the source material that is Stephen King, who apparently writes some great dialogue for his books to be turned into this many films. I think everything is well done and everybody is well cast to a T. The little boy even looks a lot like Gage, to the point where it's actually creepy from the original 89 film. Now, what we have going on here also is there isn't just, this pet cemetery of brewing. There's also a really unique thing where we see the wife, who has a actual post-traumatic stress disorder issue with her infamous sister, Zelda, yes, named Zelda, who was a sister that she had to take care of as a very young child, who had like a bad sclerosis case, I want to say. All of her body is twisted. If you've seen the original, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but I want you to be aware you're not ready for the remake, because how it shows this girl and how she's portrayed is like nothing that the original could have done. I mean, the skin textures, the bubbling of the skin, the way it looks less like clay and more like real skin because of the way the latex processing goes on now in horror films. It's just really well done. And the fact that she has more scenes in this, not just a flashback or two, but actually has a thing where the house fucks with her and gives her a visual of Zelda, is really, really unexpected and awesome and gruesome. The movie is absolutely gory, though. I'm talking real gory. Like, you see the dead cat, you see everybody, you see brains, you see internals, you see a lot of crazy shit, stab wounds. Everything is just so awesomely well done. And the fact that we see this internal struggle that, like I said, if you have the ability to bring someone back that you cared about, would you do it? is really what happens all throughout this film with this doctor. I mean, first he brings back the cat, then he brings back Ellie. And when Ellie gets brought back, it's so much different and better, in my opinion, than when Gage was brought back, because she's not a little defenseless baby. She's actually a full-grown child with some strength behind her and the ability to really cause mayhem and havoc. And the amount of havoc she causes is unbelievable for a little girl. I mean, I heard having little girls is impossible as kids, but damn, son, that's something else. And again, just everything is so uniquely done, right down to when, you know, he goes to bring his little girl back and Judd is looking at him like, dude, don't do that. You know, Judd does a real good job in this film of providing a outsider's perspective while playing accidental devil's advocate to the whole thing that sets everything off. And the fact that he just really is this character that's trying to, you know, talk him out of doing bad things again after talking him into doing something bad is really a unique well take as well, in terms of the dialogue between them, how they talk. The wife and the husband are cast, like I said, great. They have great on-screen chemistry. Everybody in this film is very believable. The plot is executed way better than the original, and all the new twists and turns in it just make this film probably one of my favorite horror retellings, if not my favorite horror remake ever made. And I mean, there's a lot to pick from that are actually pretty decent when you think about it. Really, all in all, I gotta say, I didn't even intend to review this movie. I was gonna do something a little more recent, but since I'm gonna be at this, upcoming Monster Mania Con this Saturday, where a lot of you got stickers that might scan and let you see that you got this from that, I'm excited to have done this. I wasn't really sure what to review. I was thinking Cocaine Bear, and then another animal, horror film popped up, and I was like, let me watch Pet Semetary, just see what's going on. I always wanted to watch it. It ended up being so good, I was like, I have to review this. This has to be the next film I review, because this is, I feel like this doesn't get the respect it deserves. Did this go, is it just me being old and not realizing it? Because it didn't come out that long ago, but this was a really solid retelling of the whole story. I mean, the way they took all these, familiar aspects of it and made it their own, even when it was a scene that was directly lifted from the other one, it's just such a more uniquely well-done, articulated story, versus the first one, which was, a great movie for what it was worth, but it was kind of, an awkward time for horror movies in the late 80s after the big boom had come and gone. And this movie really, I gotta say, definitely did its best to pay homage to that movie while completely upping the ante for everything else. I mean, just the way that, the whole church reveal scene is had when he comes back to life and the daughter explains it was really a tension-filled affair. It was just oh my god, you didn't get that in the first film. The first film, Church just pops back up and scratches the guy out of nowhere with no build, just appears. None of this talk beforehand about how he's gone and dead. So I gotta say, I'm really a huge fan of everything that we had done here. You should totally check this out if you're not sure about it, since it is a remake, and we know remakes go one way or the other. This definitely went all the way in the good side. That's the best way to put it. So definitely check it out. You can watch it right now on Amazon. You got to rent it, but maybe you can find a, unsolicited version of it somewhere. I don't know. But again, guys, thanks for joining me. I'm ILLsun4K. This is Terror Talk right here on ILLtv, where if it's pop culture, it pops up here. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching. I look forward to catch you on the next episode of Terror Talk right here.